Welcome back, class. Today we're going to talk about the Christian emperor. We're going to talk about Constantine and Constantine's heirs a little bit. So we're going to spend some time specifically in the early 4th century. What was the political arrangement? Well, we have the policy early on of Diocletian toward the end of the 3rd century, beginning of the 4th century, was one of persecution from 295 to 305. Galerius issued an edict of toleration in 311. In the west, where Constantine's father, was Caesar, Christianity was favored at least as early as 305. When Constantius died, his troops made his son Constantine Caesar, and so Constantine ends up in a battle waging war against Maxentius, who would also claim this power in 312. Maxentius was defeated by Licinius in 313, and Constantine in 313 issued the Edict of Milan, which made Christianity not the official religion of the Roman Empire, but one more legal religion in the Roman Empire. So Christianity now is legal. It's not the official religion, but it's legal as of 313 with the Edict of Milan. Now, Constantine and Licinius, early on, they get along. And Licinius actually married Constantine's sister, Constantia. But Licinius was supposed to rule in the east, Constantine in the west, and somebody got greedy. And they ended up fighting against each other. And Licinius was defeated in 323 and executed in 325, leaving Constantine as the sole Augustus of the entire empire. Constantine sought to convert the Roman aristocracy to Christianity with offers of white robes and gold, a lucrative amount of gold, but they refused to convert. And so Constantine, unable to convert the Roman aristocracy to Christianity, simply moved the capital from Rome to the city of Byzantium in what is modern-day northern Turkey, and renamed it Constantinople, city of Constantine. This created a power vacuum in Rome, which the bishop of the Church of Rome filled. There was a rivalry at the same time for power between the bishops of Constantinople and Rome. Rome being the ancient capital, Constantinople being the new capital, each bishop claiming supremacy because of its association with the capital. The title patriarch during this time period came to be applied to the bishops at Antioch, Alexandria, Jerusalem, Rome, and Constantinople. And so early on, you have 5 patriarchies. In Latin, patriarch becomes papi, which we translate as pope. So what was Constantine like? What was his piety like? Well, let's talk about his personal conversion. What were his motivations for adopting Christianity? Early on, he was involved in the worship of Mithras, a combination of Neoplatonic thought and Zoroastrian modes of thought. But at the Battle of Milvian Bridge near Rome, in the battle against Maxentius in 312, he saw a vision of a cross in the clouds and a voice saying to him, "In this sign conquer." And so he had the cross painted on the shields of all of his troops for the Italian campaign. And his army was victorious in the spring of 312. He sought to minimize the evil of paganism. He ended private sacrifices, and he robbed pagan temples of their wealth in order to enrich the churches. He increased the influence of Christianity. He rebuilt churches that had been damaged or destroyed during times of persecution. In 321, he made Sunday a legal day of rest. Now, you have to understand also that the troops wanted Sunday as a day of rest for worship of the sun god. So this serves two purposes for Constantine. He promised 20 pieces of gold and a white baptismal robe to any new convert in 324. And 12,000 men were baptized in Rome in 1 year as a result of this. In 325, he issued exhortations to citizens to convert to Christianity. At this time, about 1/10 of the Roman population were Christians. He exempted bishops from taxation and military service, and he provided transportation for bishops at public expense. During this time, we have the rise of monasticism. There's no longer persecution. The monks feel like they have to suffer for the gospel somehow, so they develop the monastic modes of life as a way of self-inflicted suffering and asceticism. He sought the unity of the church doctrinally, and probably for political reasons as much as anything, to have a unified empire. It was a great time of theological debate. Bishops could come out in the open and have open debates and open synods without fear of arrest and persecution. And the big theological debate of the day was the teaching of a man named Arius in North Africa, in Egypt actually. And his teachings created such a stir that Constantine called the Council of Nicaea into session to settle certain matters. Constantine was less concerned with doctrinal matters and more concerned with the political fallout that these doctrinal wranglings could have on the empire. We see the early accommodation of the church to culture at this point. My church history professor in seminary, Greg Wills, said Constantine achieved by conciliation what previous emperors had failed to achieve through persecution. That is, the burning of incense to the emperor in the church. We see in this time period the introduction of clerical robes, of processionals, of the burning of incense, and of choirs, all patterned after the practice of the royal court. So this is the beginning of this high liturgy that we see in the liturgical churches. The church buildings were patterned after public buildings, and we see the beginning of pilgrimages to holy sites during this time period. We also see that Roman law begins to reflect Christian humaneness. Mistreatment and severity of punishment is mitigated by Christian influences. But what were Constantine's inconsistencies? We all have our inconsistencies. What were his inconsistencies? Well, his treatment of the Donatists in North Africa. He considered it primarily a North African problem, focused on how to readmit the lapsed. The Donatists actually requested Constantine's aid. They said to Constantine, "We are the true church, help us with this." But Constantine instead sided against them and used force to make them comply with the larger Catholic Church. It was the first use of force in the church to create religious uniformity. We'll talk later about his treatment of Athanasius, but it was interesting to say the least. His treatment of Licinius and Crispus. Licinius was treacherously killed. Crispus, Constantine's son, was executed on the apparent charge of incest, and Constantine also had other relatives killed. He retained the title of Pontifex Maximus, or High Priest. Paganism remained the state religion. He used religion, however, to bring unity to the empire. He retained the position that he should be deified at death. He continued to sacrifice to Apollo, to consult diviners, but he showed favoritism to Christianity. His soldiers were commanded to worship the supreme God, however they viewed that. And he viewed himself as bishop of external things of the church. He postponed his baptism to the very end of his life. His health broke about 4 months before he died with the onset of an illness. You read the text and you're inclined to think maybe heart disease, something like this. And only in the last few months of his life did he live what could be termed a truly Christian life. He received baptism at the hands of an Arian heretic, Eusebius of Nicomedia, in 337, a few months before his death. And that brings us to a quick discussion of the sons of Constantine. We have Constans, who was ruler of Italy and North Africa. He favored the Nicene Council and was forced to commit suicide in 350. We have Constantine II, who also favored the Nicene Council's decision. He was killed in battle with Constans in 340. We have Constantius II, who favored the Arian heresy, who passed laws against sacrifice and visiting Jewish sites. And he's the one who survived Constantine the longest. And then we have Julian the Apostate, who was Constantine's nephew. He was tutored under Eusebius of Nicomedia, but he became infatuated with paganism and embraced paganism and tried to restore paganism to its former glory in Rome, and was killed in 363. And so that takes us into most of the 4th century. In our next lesson, we'll delve into specific theological controversy. We'll talk about the Arian controversy in Lecture 2C.